When we were in Japan, I had enough points to get out. I could have been. I was on my way to getting a discharge, but I was still in. Tokyo, and I acquired dysentery while I was in there, and I didn't get a leave when I was supposed to. All the guys that left when I was supposed to leave went on board a transport back to Pearl Harbor and then to San Francisco. But it was just a pure old tub compared to what I'd been on for 3 years. And it was everybody that I could remember got sicker than a dog on the way back because they couldn't stand the sea going back on an old transport. But anyway, after I got over dysentery, I went back on a transport, got back to San Francisco, and it was then sent to Toledo, Ohio, to a discharge area, and I was discharged in the discharge area in Toledo, Ohio.
Did you take a train? How did you get from?
Took a train from San Francisco to Toledo.
How long were you on the train for?
Well, it was about 2 days before I got to Toledo. I don't know which route we took or anything of that nature, but after we got to Toledo, a separation center, I was discharged and had my sea bag and carrying on my back, and got out on the highway and thumbed the ride back to Mansfield.
From Toledo?
From Toledo. I had to hitchhike to Mansfield.
So how did that work? Did you have your uniform on?
I had my uniform on. I had a sea bag over my shoulder. It was heavy as the dickens. And I got back to Mansfield, and a buddy of mine got home about the same time, and we were still in uniform. And he told me after I got home, he says, "Hey, go with me. We got to go get some candy for my sister. She's getting married, and she needs some candy for whatever they use for candy for. When they have what do they call it when they have something before they got married? They have a
rehearsal, wedding rehearsal.
Yeah, well, it was. She had to get some candy for." Anyway, we went to the candy store in Mansfield, a Fannie Farmer candy. And we went in there to get some candy. And my buddy was with me, and his sister's the one that's getting married. And they'd only let us have a half pound of candy because it was still rationed. So I went in and got a half pound of candy, and I had my buddy go in and get a half pound of candy. And I went back and got another half pound of candy. We did that 4 times. The girls at the counter, they knew what was going on, and they started laughing. And the one girl caught my eye, and we got to talking, got acquainted, and she said that senior high is having a game with Canton McKinley on Friday night. And she said, "You want to go?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like to see that game. I haven't seen a high school football game in 4 years." So anyway, we went out to Mansfield Senior High. We couldn't get a seat. We didn't have any tickets. And I saw somebody up in the top row and hollered back down and said, "There's a couple vacant seats up here." So we went up there and didn't have to pay anything. We went up there and watched the game in the last row of the stadium.
Is it this Arlington Field out here still?
It was in Arlington Field. It was right behind the high school. Okay. The old stadium. Mansfield. I forget what they called that stadium now, Tiger Stadium or something. But that was before they built Arlen Field. But anyway, that's when I met my wife and we started going out together. And we eventually got married.
So, I guess the good Lord bless you when you got back from the service. Did you ever stop and think this? If your buddy never wanted candy?
He was on the South Dakota. He was a good guy, and he graduated a year after I did at Johnsville. And we were the best friends when we were in high school. We played basketball together and played baseball together.
What was his name?
Lowell Reinhardt. He was on the South Dakota. He was a first-class electrician.
And he made it out.
Yeah, he got out too, just like I did.
And if you remember, for our viewers, remember South Dakota, you said had been hit.
It was hit in the Battle of Santa Cruz. And that's when we got our bomb hit. They got hit by a couple bombs, and the captain was killed by shrapnel.
And so he
made it out, but his captain didn't make it.
And so, what was your girlfriend at the time?
Mary Lou Stillwell. Mary Lou Yeager. And we were married for 68 years.
How long did you date before you got married?
About 5 months.
That didn't take long. It was true love.
Yeah.
So you say she caught your eye, and did you ask her, or no? She asked you.
I asked her
to the football game.
Yeah. Well, no, she asked me to the football game. I asked her about getting married, but she said that football game with Kent McKinley, and she said we'll save you a seat. Of course, they didn't have any seats left, but we did get to the game. Yeah, we were married for 68 years.
Wow.
I got that up in a Japanese prison camp. See, they used it for, they had these little doll pins, when they had them sewed on.
Mm-hmm. Let's hold that up there.
Yeah.
I can hold it up. Looks like some writing on there.
Oh, yeah, that's the Omari prison camp in Tokyo, August 1945.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Maybe I can stand up, Kim. I'll back up here and get out of here.
Oh, there's a chair behind you.
Is there a chair?
Yep, I'll move that out of the way.
I forget. I gotta watch what I'm doing.
You're right.
Oh, boy.
Here. Let me see how it gets on there. I have to shift over that way just a little bit. I'm actually going to pull this out. Turn it sideways and look.
I could back up and put it on my lap.
Oh, no, that's all right. We got plenty of it right there. Awesome.
I think it hurts my shoulders.
Yep, that's fine. We'll go ahead and have a seat there. We got it pretty well covered there.
Oh, man.
There we go. All right, we got her well covered there.
Okay. That's good enough.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously you met your wife, but I want to try to see if you remember a certain instance here.
I enlisted December 15th, 1941, and I was discharged November 5th, 1945.
Now, when you got home the first night, wherever that was, when you laid your head down on the pillow, what was going through your mind the first time you laid back in bed?
Well, see, I was living with foster parents. I didn't have no family at all, and I was back home who I was living with, and they were my foster parents, the Nicholas family, Lawrence Nicholas family. They had 2 daughters and 3 boys. But anyway, I went back home and did the normal things that I would do, when I got home. Had a good meal and talked about a lot of things. Wondered what happened when I was gone, all this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And stayed there until I got my job back at Tappan and Company. Went back to work. And then later on, got married in July. 7/11, 1946. 1946.
You got married for 68 years. So was there a type of transition to get back into civilian life? I mean, you were gone for so long, and then to get back did it take you
It didn't take long to get back into groove again. I got caught up with everything that was happening through conversation. And then I went back down to the tapping company where I worked before. I got my job back. And from then on, I worked there 43 years.
So you worked there for 43 years. Did you ever maybe utilize the GI Bill? That's a big buzzword in history books. Was that something?
I worked for Dick Tappan was the CEO of the tapping company, and he wanted me to go to school and he wanted me to be a salesman for a tapping company.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I just don't have the education, and I'm not sure I can get my nose to the grindstone. I said I'd just as soon work now and see if I could make a go of it. So I didn't toy with the idea of going to college.
Okay.
I was just lucky and glad to get home and get back in the normal groove of the situation. Got used to doing what I always did in my spare time.
So, the guys you served with, I've seen some books where reunions and stuff like that. How did you keep in contact? What was the contact process like for you and your comrades?
We had like I told a while ago, I mentioned my Mr. Carpenter. He was a lieutenant commander. He was my gunnery officer. And he got 2 or 3 other officers together with some enlisted men. And they got together and decided to form reunions. And our first reunion was in Roosevelt Hotel in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And our former captain was there, the first captain we ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And we had almost 400 guys at that time, almost 400 guys. We had a crew of 650. And then each year they had a group that formed a committee that had made arrangements to have reunions every 2 years. We went to Boston, we went to Norfolk, went to St. Petersburg, Florida, and Jacksonville. We went to so many different places for reunions. And we got together and had a lot of fun with guys that we knew.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're about all gone.
So when was your last reunion?
The last reunion that I went to was 4 years ago.
And how many were left then?
We only had about 75, I think, at that time. We have crew. Well, it was almost 700, 689 or something like that. But that ship was 700 feet long. It was a nice ship, fast. It was a fast ship. It would go 35 knots and nothing flat. We made a speed run from San Francisco to Pearl Harbor, and it took us 72 hours.
3 days.
From San Francisco to Pearl Harbor.
That's moving.
Yeah, we were moving pretty good. I think it was 72 hours.
So,
but I got together with a lot of guys at the reunions. You know, we hashed over a lot of things that I couldn't remember, that they couldn't remember. We'd put them together and hash it over. You know, and remember this, remember that. Oh God, never thought I was going to be back. I thought the next day was going to be the last day.
What are you saying? You never thought you'd be back? You just never thought you guys would.
Never thought I'd make it. Never thought I'd make it through. Yeah.
Wow.
And everybody had the same idea. Come, whatever happens, happens. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You had your mind made up.
So, how did your the overall experience of your time in the service? How did that affect your life?
My life?
Yes.
And I appreciated a lot of things. I appreciated every day of my life. A lot of experience that you could remember, some of the things you didn't want to remember. But it was it changed. I don't know. It changed my life. It was rough, but I made it through. I was fortunate. I was surprised that things take place the way they do, and I can't understand why it has to be the way it is. But there's so many different nationalities in this country and all over the world, and so many people just don't agree with what's going on or what's the best way to handle situations. You just have to do what you think is right and do the right thing with anybody that you're associated with.
So,
and I sure appreciate the fact that I'm still able to talk to people and understand what they're thinking and get all the information from different people and how they feel about things.
so what do you want people today and in the future to remember about World War II?
Just remember the people that had to sacrifice their lives, and remember that they did an awful good sacrificial service for the country. It's just amazing how many people we lost and how many people that are still remembering what happened. And I just believe that if people use their head and understand what's happening in the world today, if they just keep their head and keep a level-headed situation about everything, we'll work out okay.
So there's some different schools of thought about the atomic bomb and it being dropped. What are your thoughts, your feelings about the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombs being dropped?
I think dropping the bombs did a lot of difference for a lot of people. It saved a lot of lives, and I truly believe that if it hadn't happened, that the war would have lasted quite a bit longer, because the Japanese would never give up, and we had people that were just suffering too much. It had to be done, and I believe after all the years and everything that's happened, people understand what the situation was and what it was all about. And I think for the most part, if people would be more intelligent about what happened, it would be a better place to live.
So what do you think, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but what do you think about like the world today? It could be the United States or just the world in general, but what do you think about it, and where do you think things are headed?
Right now, I'm at the age where it's kind of hard for me to realize what might take place. I just hope that the right people do the right thing for everybody concerned.
So are there some people do, some people don't, are there any conspiracy theories out there that you subscribe to or think that might be true or have some valid merit?
Well, there's a few things that happened in later years and just in the last several months that kind of gives you some time to think what might have taken place. But how are you to know exactly what did take place on certain aspects of the history that we've gone through in the last 2 or 3 years? It's just hard to realize that things happen the way they do and what might take place at a later date.
Do you have any regrets in your life or things that you might want to go back and change?
As far as my own life, I think I did pretty much the right thing. I didn't have anybody to really lead me in the right way. I just had a lot of people be good to me and make sure that I did the right thing with the right people.
So would you go back and, I guess, quote, do it again? Even if the outcome might be different. Go back and replay out Don Yeager. Would would you go back and do it again, even though things might be, could turn out different?
That's a pretty hard question to digest right now. I think I'd realize what took place and what's taken place, and hopefully do the right thing.
So, in your life, looking back at everything, especially in the beginning, what do you think made a difference in your life? Like, what shaped you?
Yeah.
What event or what people?
I had a lot of difficulties in my life. I just appreciate the fact that I went to an establishment that took care of me and taught me to do the right things and was good to me. And I think it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I didn't have a lot of things that I should have had in my lifetime.
So you've witnessed and been a part of some of the most intriguing history events of all time. How do you feel about that? I mean, the depth and the breadth of history that your life has covered. When you look at that, I mean, what do you think about all this?
It's hard to put things in perspective right now, because so many things happened in my lifetime. It's been quite a while. A lot of good things happened and a lot of bad things happened. But I managed to think that I was doing the right thing most all the time.
So what words of advice do you have for future generations?
Just get a good education and realize what you're here for and what good you can do for anybody else.
So some may wonder this: how do you make it in life? How do you see that? Or somebody's wanting to know, how do you just make it in life? How do you define that, and what's your thoughts and advice on that?
Make sure you realize that you're doing the right thing most of the time, and get some advice from people that you trust in, and hopefully everything will work out to your advantage in the way you think about what happens in the world today.
If you had to write a book about your life, what would that title be?
I have no idea. I think maybe sometimes I think about things and I wonder if people really believe me. If I would write a book, I don't know whether I could.
What's a book title or something? Just what would define you? You sit down and you're like, what? If I had to title my life as a book, what words would you even throw in there? You may not even have a title, but what would you? Throw something out there.
I think I'm just grateful for what took place in my life and the way I handled it, and the people I lived with. Even though it wasn't my own family, I had a lot of help from foster people, and they really helped me a lot, I think. Maybe there's a lot of decisions I made that weren't right, I don't know. But I think
what do you think you may have missed out on?
Well, I missed out on knowing whether I should have gone for more education in my life. I could have gone to probably school, college, different things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But there was too many things that was questionable in my life that I didn't really make a decision on anything like that. Maybe I wasn't thinking in the right aspect of that situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. real quick, I did want, you had mentioned to me that there was a couple of guys that had served. You had a couple of stories for them. The one was the tank commander that you had rode around with when you were in, I think it was like California or something like that. There was a tank commander, you said. You drove his tank.
Yeah.
And
This was one of the boys that was in the foster family that took care of me. He was like a foster brother to me. And he was drafted. And he was in Patton's army. And he made it through the war. And he had a good life. But there's things that happen to anybody that can get some kind of a problem with health-wise. And that was one of the things that happened to Thelbert. He had a problem that couldn't be handled right, and it couldn't have been saved as far as that goes, his health-wise.
what was his name?
Thelbert Nicholas. Nicholas. He was like a foster brother. And he was a brother of he had two other brothers, and I respected both of them. One was a doctor that was voted the top doctor in the nation in 1960. And the other was a professor at David Lipscomb College in Nashville. And I helped those kids when I was living with them. And but they had the right intelligence and did the right things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good family.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up for segment 5. Don, I just want to say real quick that I appreciate the opportunity here to interview you. Again, I'll say that it's always...
I wasn't really too prepared, I guess.
I think you were more than prepared than you realize. And so, again, it's a very humbling experience. Again, I want to say thank you.
Well, thank you.
And so
I'll have to go down for supper now.
Yep, absolutely.
You take care.
Will do.